Evil spirits and demonic possessions are two things that nobody wants. While some people might be tempted to try out a Ouija board for themselves, you will have to be very careful that you do not summon any of these terrifying demons. First up, we have Incubus. This dark demon is said to take on the appearance of a male human who tries to impregnate unsuspecting women while they are asleep. Now, the goal of Incubus is to use his unsuspecting victims to birth demons and witches in order to create more servants of hell and devil worshippers. The word Incubus is actually derived from the Latin language and directly translates to nightmare. So keeping that in mind, it only makes sense that this demon would appear in the shadows of the night to prey on his victims. It is not known how many dark beings Incubus could have fathered, but it is believed that the famous magician Merlin was actually created by Incubus. Many people believe that Merlin would actually spread dark magic in the towns that he traveled to while he was under the demon's control. Now, some people also believe that this demon has actually been summoned through a Ouija board on multiple occasions. There are many stories of people finding their partners alone in bed doing some unspeakable acts by themselves. It also appears that any woman who has been a victim of Incubus has no recollection of the events that led to their eventual pregnancy. And once a Ouija board has been used to summon Incubus, it is incredibly hard to get rid of him. This is not as simple as opening a door and kicking someone out of your house when you want them to leave. Some of the oldest tricks that were used in the medieval era include covering your bed in black salt and burning special types of incense that Incubus really doesn't like. So unless you want to have a very disgusting visitor arrive in your home, the Incubus is one demon you should never activate with a Ouija board. So do you believe that Ouija boards are as dangerous as people claim? Give us your thoughts in the comments down below as we check out some more demons. Next up is Beelzebub. This demon is viewed as many different things by many different people, which brings up the possibility that it could be a real-life shapeshifter. Now, most demons have a clear goal that they want to achieve, and they have various ways of manipulating their victims in order to obtain what they want. Beelzebub loosely translates to Lord of the Flies, which has led many to believe that this demon could very well take on the appearance of a small insect. However, other stories have described Beelzebub as a large demon that actually commands a huge army of insect-like creatures. It is said that Beelzebub uses its many servants to cause destruction and wreak havoc on Earth through violent attacks. These servants are generally regarded as scum and excrement that are lurking in the deepest depths of the underworld. Some religious figures even believe that these servants are damned souls who are forced to carry out their Lord's dirty work for the rest of eternity. The Catholic Church especially fears Beelzebub, as he is even mentioned in the Bible. The scribes in Mark 3:22 have actually accused Jesus Christ himself of working directly with Beelzebub. Some believe that the Lord of the Flies was banishing evil spirits away from Earth on Jesus' orders so he could gain even more servants. Now, anything that commands an army of evil spirits and has the ability to shapeshift should not be taken lightly. Summoning Beelzebub with a Ouija board can enrage the demon and cause it to take over your day-to-day life. There have been reports of Beelzebub appearing in homes as a large dark mass that is most active at night. Other smaller paranormal events are likely the work of his minions, but this is one demon you do not want to mess around with. After that, we have Antoine Gay. This one may not sound as terrifying as a traditional demon, but it could be even more dangerous. Antoine Gay started out life as an ordinary human being, but he is infamously known as being one of the strongest cases of demonic possession to this very day. Antoine was a Frenchman who served in the military in the 1800s before becoming a carpenter in the city of Lyon. He then decided he wanted to begin the process of becoming a monk and was accepted as a lay brother at his local abbey. Now, things took a strange turn for him, however, when he shockingly decided to leave the church due to a complete nervous disorder. His sudden mood swings and his unexplained conditions quickly started to raise concerns that he had been possessed by a demon. He was examined by priests and other religious figures who reported that Gay spoke in a much deeper tone and began to share dark secrets of his life. He also started speaking in perfect Latin without ever studying the language or having any knowledge of it. Now, religious figures named the demon that had possessed Antoine Isacaro, but not much was known about the demon or its intentions beyond its name. Antoine Gay eventually passed away in the late 1800s due to various complications that priests believe were linked to the demon who had possessed him. But nowadays, there are people who are convinced that Antoine Gay is still inhabiting our world as an evil entity. There are rumors that Isacaro had passed its energy onto Antoine when he passed away, and he is now tormenting other souls all around the world. However, because of the mystery surrounding the original demon, no one is really sure how to stop it. Ouija boards are likely the easiest way to summon it, but there is no reason why anyone should even attempt to do that. Next on our list is Baphomet. This demon is another direct servant of Satan who was mentioned in texts as far back as the 11th century. He is described as a large winged beast with a goat head and a human-like body. Many paintings also show the words dissolve and coagulate tattooed on the demon's arms. Now this seems a little strange at first until you realize the main purpose of this demonic figure. Many believe that Satan had originally summoned Baphomet to destroy religion from the inside out. He would manipulate humans on Earth to carry out some evil deeds and spread the word that religion was very bad for the soul. Of course, Baphomet needed a large following of loyal servants who would help him in his quest, and he didn't have a tough time finding them. The infamous Knights Templar that existed between the 12th and 14th centuries were apparently the main followers and direct servants of Baphomet. They would supposedly carry out all sorts of anti-Catholic rituals and actions, which included spitting on the cross. While the Knights were technically a military order that was supposedly fighting alongside the Catholic Church, some believe that they were actually fighting against it. Many people started to question the Templars' faith in the early 1300s, and some were convinced that they were worshipping demons. Then in 1307, it was King Philip IV who ordered the majority of the Knights to be arrested for worshipping Baphomet. This led to the of many members and the complete dissolution of the order. But if you thought that spelled the end of Baphomet altogether, then you would be very, very wrong. There are many anti-religious groups that still exist today, and many believe that they are actively summoning Baphomet to carry out their orders. While many evil spirits are keen on working with this terrifying demon, others are still actively fighting to banish him forever. And finally we have Lucifer. Now this evil figure is actually a fallen angel who is now believed to be the demon of pride. Now because pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, Lucifer's actions have resulted in him being labeled a demon by many in the Catholic Church. It is said that Lucifer was actually one of God's greatest creations, and many regarded him as a true son of God. While Lucifer was gifted a throne by God himself and was placed in the Garden of Eden to enlighten humans, his own self-pride eventually got the better of him. After witnessing the creation of Adam and Eve, Lucifer was ordered to bow to the original pair of humans. But in a defiant move of power, Lucifer declared that his creation was far superior and he refused to bow to Adam and Eve. Now some believe that Lucifer was incredibly brave to rebel against his creator, but God was not interested in hearing his argument. Lucifer was banished from heaven for his actions and is regarded as the first sinner for putting his own self-pride before God. His appearance as an angel quickly transformed into a demon who convinces people to develop egos. It is believed by many in the Catholic Church and others that egotistical people are the works of Lucifer himself as he leads them to their inevitable downfall. While many demons could be considered more dangerous due to their violent natures, Lucifer could actually be the most cunning of them all. His slow and steady manipulation of a person's ego can lead to some terrible choices in life that can have irreversible consequences. The estimated number of victims who have been manipulated by Lucifer throughout history is well into the millions. Summoning this entity through a Ouija board might not have an immediate impact on a person's life, but it will slowly crush them over time. There are definitely ways to fix a person who is possessed by Lucifer, but you'd be better off just keeping him far away from any Ouija boards.
Number 5. Patty Donovan. This is a tale from the investigative files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, my favorite paranormal investigators. 15-year-old Patty Donovan came across the Ouija board and decided to use it to find a friend. From the first yes in response to her queries, she was hooked. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it specifics about her everyday life. After a year of telling all of her secrets to the board, Patty had become emotionally dependent on the spirit, asking it one night to reveal her future. During the very long session, it laid out a scenario of Patty's life for the next 6 years, providing specific details, right down to the date of birth of her first offspring, and the fact that she would have a total of 3 spawn by 1978, which is all information that would eventually prove correct. Being as dependent as she was on the evening of March 2nd, Patty now pleaded for the spirit to manifest. The next morning, Theodore Donovan found the spark plug wires pulled out, the rubber hoses unfastened, and the fan belt cut when he attempted to start his car. And not much later, Patty attempted to start her car, and it was discovered later that the internal engine had been completely disassembled. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Foundation shrubs were yanked out of the ground, roots and all. On the roof, a 6-foot cast iron pipe housing electrical wires was found bent at a 90-degree angle. On Friday, March 8th, Ted marked 1 flat on the kitchen calendar. And no sooner did Patty get her car back from the shop than one of her other tires lost air. The next day, being Saturday, her father made the same entry on the calendar, although this time it seemed the tire had been cut with a sharp implement. In the meantime, Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the Ouija board. Night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would simply slide over to goodbye. She had no idea her ethereal beau had actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. Like, come on, Buddy goes completely silent and your house starts being targeted by hell demons and you don't pick up on it? By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so troublesome that Ted complained to the police, who assured him that they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work, Ted and his wife, Ellen, were sitting in the kitchen with their son Brian when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. Cautiously moving to investigate, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall in Brian's room. Just as upsetting was the fact that the jagged edges of the plasterboard were pointing inwards, with the blow coming from inside the walls. Yeah, the evidence is already a mountain for me, but we still have plenty more to pick through. Listening in the dark that night, Ted heard the sound of a board being pried loose, but after checking the entire house thoroughly, found no loose boards. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to the Warrens. Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Finally contacting Ed and Lorraine, they arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, finding the home in complete disarray. Lorraine said nothing, although at the time she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from going back outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was revealed. To that I say, about dang time. The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism, which that process sadly took a month to be granted. The family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time, but that alone could fill out a top 5 of its own, so let me know in the comments if you want that eventually. Number 4, the first victim. The board's dark history begins with the strange death of the owner of the original trademark, American entrepreneur William Fuld, in 1927. After acquiring the business from its former owner, a medium named Helen Peters, who sold it because of the serious damage it caused to her family, William built the company into a profitable business. Shortly thereafter, he began to experience his own family troubles that resulted in him cutting his brother out of the company in 1919, and just like my mother and I, they never spoke again. 8 years later, on February 24th, William was on the roof supervising the erection of a flagpole when a support suddenly snapped and he toppled off the building. He tried to break the fall by grabbing onto a windowsill, but the window closed and he fell to the ground, breaking several ribs. He should have survived, but the vehicle hit a bump on the way to hospital that sent a splint of cracked rib bone into his heart instantly. Well then, what a coincidence. After his death, William's descendants took over the company. Catherine and William A. Fuld ran the company until the youngest brother, Hubert, became president in 1942. The Parker brothers acquired the company and all of its assets in 1966, and finally Hasbro took over Parker Brothers, and with it, the Ouija board in 1991. I have no issue with cursing out Hasbro. While they may be great at making board games that aren't cursed, and I'm sure they're profiting on the Yikes fandom that are the adult fans of My Little Pony, they really bungled the years that they held the Disney Princess doll rights, and that's something I'll never forgive them for. Number 3, a long-term buddy. I'm using buddy pretty loosely here. This tale comes from Reddit user Madame Mim20, which I'm hoping is a reference to the Sword in the Stone. During her junior year of high school, she went to a party where the host brought out a Ouija board, and she admitted that she was into paranormal stuff, but didn't know the dangers of, one of those boards. Typical questions were asked, but her vision began to darken, even though the lights were on. The last question being the classic, how old will I be when I die? Everyone got traditional numbers, except for Mim. The planchette moved to 0, and then 1, then 0, then 1, continuously moving between those two numbers until someone just shook the board and said it was being stupid. At that point, she stopped playing, since it weirded her out, and I'm sensing 2 red flags so far. But I'll excuse one of them, since she didn't know the horrors at the time. Mim claims to have a decent ability to sense the unknown, and normally see, beings or ghosts. This one showed up during one of her classes not even a few weeks later. If anyone's getting deja vu, this is reminding me of Patty Donovan as well, don't worry. At first, the ghost appeared like a comforting protector, until he wasn't. Weird things in Mim's home would happen, ranging from drawers opening, whispers, shadows, lights in places where they shouldn't be, and books moving on their own. And at night, it would be much, much worse. He would just stand in front of her door and the fear would ooze out of him as his form would change. Mim had no doubt that he was downright evil, to which I say, no S-H-I-T, Sherlock. She dealt with all of this single-handedly until she moved in with her husband, so I'll give credit where credit is due for enduring that. Things escalated in the now duo's first home together, a small 400 square foot rental. Footsteps, breathing, and unknown whispers became the norm. At the time, her soon-to-be husband was a practicing Wiccan and had blessed most of the home, but forgot about the porch and outer walls, where they would hear scratches on the walls and knocking on the door and windows. Folks had seen her demonic attachment as a shadow and described him as tall and built like a brick house. Also that he felt just outright bad and would always go back into the room Mim was in. Her husband had tried to banish him out, and it didn't go well. For context, her husband worked the closing shift at his place of employment and would get home at around 3:30 a.m., which happens to be right in the middle of prime haunting hours. There was a road he would have to take that was very haunted as well, with a history of lots of accidents and right next to a good-sized river. One night he got home looking extremely pale and sweating. Turned out that while driving on that specific road that night, his brakes failed and he couldn't stop. He was going about 100 kilometers an hour, and the wheel began to jerk out of his hands towards the river. He had to use all his strength to keep that car on the road because the wheel was just yanking so hard. To the shock and surprise of no one, the brakes were fine the next day, and ditto for the wheel. This was the final straw, and the duo had a priest bless the entire house and were eventually able to move out of the state and leave whatever it was behind. Number 2, teenage hijinks. This tale comes from a gal named Jenny and also dates back to, well, high school hijinks. She was at her friend's house for a fun summer weekend, and on the Sunday night, they decided to make themselves a Ouija board, taking all the precautions, using a piece of flat plywood, which was laminated with plastic on one side, and using an old glass which could later be discarded. This was the first experience for both of the teens, and they assured each other that they were going to do it properly. No being stupid and pushing the glass around to fool the other. They started off by saying a prayer before asking if there were any spirits present, trying to be specific about only wanting contact with peaceful and good energies and spirits. Here's the thing. You can't guarantee who is going to answer a Ouija board, and evil spirits are gonna lie if they need to deceive you. So while I commend the intent, I'm already sensing a yikes situation. The glass was moving very slowly at first, and they were unsure if it was working or not. The duo asked if there was somebody who wished to talk to them, and the glass moved slowly over to the yes marker. They asked the spirit, if it was male or female, and it indicated that it was female. When asked to spell out its name, the glass first traveled to K, and then to a Y, and then to M, before ending on the center, ergo spelling out Kim. Jenny's friend went white, and it was obvious that he was freaked out. They then asked how she died, and the spirit spelled out car, which further scared Jenny's friend. Next, they asked what kind of car it was that Kim had died in, and it proceeded to spell out Reliant Robin. It was at this point that her friend told Jenny that his auntie was dead, her name was Kim, that she died in a car accident, and she was driving a Reliant Robin. Next, they asked if the spirit had anything to tell them, but it indicated no and then said goodbye. As much as I hate to crush spirits, pun not intended, I doubt that was actually his aunt. Probably just a demonic spirit playing an awful joke, which is something I wouldn't wish on anybody. So next they asked if there was any more spirits that wished to communicate with them. It suddenly got very cold in the room, and the hair was standing up on both teens' necks and legs. This spirit was more powerful, and the glass moved a lot faster. They asked if it was male or female, and it indicated that it was a male. Once again, following a formula, they asked for the spirit's name, and he said he was called Liam. Next, the duo asked for the spirit's age when he passed over, and he went to the 7 and then to the 0, indicating 70. Finally, they once again asked whether he had anything to tell them, and it proceeded to spell out Ollie, which happened to be Jenny's friend's younger brother's name. Her friend then explained that his younger brother Ollie had seen the spirit of an old man standing in the garden some years earlier. They ended their session with another prayer, and while I commend their attempts at making things safe, I hope the spirits that know way too much about them are leaving them alone. Number 1, predicting a death. Heads up, this might be a little triggering for folks, so I promise I won't mind if you hop off now. Heck, the first time I read this story, I got tears in my eyes because it hit close to home for me. Allison was a teen at the time and was at a friend's house for a sleepover when she and her friends decided to play with a Ouija board in the garage. Her friend's mother was at work and her father was in bed, so they had no supervision and decided some debauchery was in order. While playing with the board, they asked if anyone wanted to speak to them and got a yes, so they asked for a name. They got Mom. And when they asked for a message, it said under bridge. No one understood the message at the time. Later, after they had gone to bed, there was a knock at the front door. It was the local sheriff who had come to the house to tell the girl's father that his wife had been in a car accident on her way home from work that night, and her car was found submerged in water under a bridge just a few miles from their home. While I don't believe it was actually the mom communicating over the board, I'm just hoping it wasn't a demon who actually caused harm. But yeah. I don't really have much more to say on this tale, other than I feel like I've had the wind knocked out of me. In 5th place, we have the origins of the board. No better place to start than from the beginning, which is a very good place to start. The board's dark history begins with the strange death of the owner of the original trademark, American entrepreneur William Fuld, in 1927. After acquiring the business from its former owner, a medium named Helen Peters, who sold it because of the serious damage it caused her family, William built the company into a profitable business. Shortly thereafter, he began to experience his own family troubles that resulted in him cutting his brother out of the company in 1919, and just like my mother and I, they never spoke again. 8 years later, on February 24th, William was on the roof supervising the erection of a flagpole when a support suddenly snapped and he toppled off the building. He tried to break the fall by grabbing onto a windowsill, but the window closed and he fell to the ground, breaking several ribs. As somebody with a rib injury, ouch. He should have survived, but the vehicle that was taking him to the hospital sent a splint of a cracked rib bone into his heart, killing him instantly. Oh well then. in. What a coinky-dink. After his death, William's children took over the company. Catherine and William A. Fuld ran the company until the youngest brother, Hubert, became president of William Fuld Incorporated in 1942. Now, Parker Brothers acquired the company and all of its assets in 1966. And finally, Hasbro took over Parker Brothers and with it, the Ouija board in 1991. Turns out, in 2008, during an attempt to market pink board games to girls, Hasbro released a very pink and girly limited edition version of the board. It's a good thing I never came across it as a kid, because I probably would have been so tempted to play with the board. Heck, I almost found myself tempted to check eBay for a listing today, but I don't trust myself enough to not spend too much money on it purely for the aesthetic. Okay, I lied, I did check eBay, but it would be like $200, and that is not in my budget. In fourth place, we have the board that wouldn't burn. Writer Brandy Flack has discussed openly how she and her friends played with the Hasbro branded Ouija board as teens purely out of young mind curiosity and rebellion. At the time, her uncle told tales about when weird stuff began to happen at his home. He and his wife decided to throw their Ouija board into a dumpster at a local gas station, but it magically reappeared at the house. For reference, the weird stuff included lights flashing all around Brandy's aunt's bedroom downstairs and her uncle's bedroom upstairs at the same time that woke them from sleep, but when her uncle looked out the window, there was no one outside, and an instance of a white rat appearing and disappearing happened from the aunt's bedroom. Brandy is positive that the home was haunted, and remembered that the pet cats that roamed the house weren't too fond of the environment, especially the aunt's room. Animals are usually much more sensitive than humans to spirits, just saying. Now, when it came time for Brandy to play with the board herself, she dabbled quite often with danger. Sometimes nothing would happen, other times she and her friends would receive messages from what they thought were spirits. One particular evening, she and a friend were playing, and the indicator started moving quickly in an erratic circle. Now, whoever, or whatever they were talking to, was perturbed, and upon asking what the message was that it wanted to get across, the board spelled out 911. Now, the attacks of September 11th, 2001 hadn't happened yet, but she and her friends knew that, you only call that number if something bad happened. So they panicked, immediately taking their hands off the indicator, making direct eye contact, grabbing the Ouija board in sync, running through the house, and throwing the thing in the backyard. While they panted after that run, they discussed how to dispose of the board and decided on burning it with what they had lying around, thankfully having a bunch of kerosene kicking around. They poured the flammable fluid on the board, lit a match, dropped it, and ran. And what do you know? The damn thing refused to burn. I'm not surprised. Brandy and her friend tried with multiple matches, and zilch. She played with it many times afterwards, experiencing instances of her boombox turning on by itself, stuff falling off shelves, and erratic, unintelligible messages. I'm no arsonist, but I've been known to play around with lighter fluid, and that stupid board should have gone up in flames easily. In third place, we have a cursed previous tenant. Now, Mark has very adamantly emphasized that he has not embellished his tale at all, and this is just what happened after moving into a Ouija board cursed home in Australia that he lived in with his family between 1982 to 85. Now, Mark's mom, who was a stay-at-home mom, said the first thing she noticed after a month or two of living in this house was that the family dog would refuse to enter the home and spend all of her time in the backyard in her kennel. Now, apparently if the mom was bringing in the laundry, the dog would happily follow up until the back door, but as soon as the mom reached the back door, the dog's tail would drop and she would start whimpering. Now, Mark's mom chalked it up to weird behavior for moving, nothing more, until weird things began to happen. The laundry room would flood for no reason, with adjacent rooms left completely dry, and Mark's parents would walk down the back of the house to find light bulbs that had shattered in their sockets. His mom in particular said she absolutely detested walking in the back of the house at night, citing that as soon as she entered the stairway landing area that was at the back of the house, her hairs would stand on end and she would feel a sensation like someone watching her every move. Nope, that's when I would have left. The weirdness continued, ramping up over a few months in the evenings when the parents would hear shuffling feet coming from the rumpus room, which was located directly below their bedroom. Now, often Mark's mom said she'd be, knitting or watching TV at the front of the house by herself late at night, only to hear laughter coming from the back of the house. And she would always check, never finding any source of the noise. Oh, I'm not done yet. Yeah, we're only partway through this tale. One weekend, when a cousin and an aunt came to stay at the home, the mom had to rush out for an errand and warned the aunt before leaving the house about, the weird noises just to be safe and polite. The aunt dismissed the claims, but of course, Mark's mom returned home later to find the uncle consoling the aunt in the driveway of the house. Now, remember, he wasn't originally supposed to be there that weekend. While Mark's mom was gone, the aunt felt thumping from the floorboards, laughing from the back of the house, and a disembodied spirit calling her name. Mark's mom was fed up at this point and started asking around the neighbors for any kind of clarity about the house. And this is where she learned that the previous renter went a bit crazy after a messy divorce and joined a religious group where she hosted seances in the rumpus room, where, the majority of the disturbances had been coming from. It goes without saying that Mark's mom wanted to, try and move out that same day, but her husband disagreed, so they stayed put for a while yet. A few months later, Mark began complaining to his mom about a man who sat on top of his wardrobe, looking at him at night, so she pitched the entire thing out of frustration. A few weeks after that, Mark's mom was getting changed in her room at the top of the house one day, and when she went to get out of her room, she found the door was locked. She started shaking the door, but it wouldn't open, calling out for help, but no one was home. The poor woman was 7 months pregnant, but she made the decision to shimmy down the drain pipe to the ground, re-entered the house through the side door, up the stairs, to find her door wide open and unlocked. Now she was ticked with the house at this point, and made the decision to consult a local pastor to ask what to do. After listening to everything the family was going through, the pastor presented her with two options. She could ignore everything and pray it stopped, or read enough Bible verses out loud in hopes that they could anger the spirit into, moving out. He warned her though that if they went with the second option, it might throw stuff around. He was quoted as saying, "Take it or leave it, and you might think I'm mad, but you have like 2 to 3 demonic entities residing in the back of your house." This was the end of it for Mark's mom, who was already debating divorce from her husband and began packing up everything to move herself and her family out of there. The day before the family was about to finally leave, the mom was checking in on the youngest ward while she was sleeping in the nursery at the top of the house, and discovered that the bed that was supposed to have that ward was empty. The window above the bed was wide open, and the fly screen behind it had its rubber seal hanging in the breeze, with the flap of the fly screen swinging in the breeze. Now underneath that window was an annex over the back door, which now had a huge dent in the fiberglass of it, and its supports were completely broken off. The tiny human was crawling around the backyard with the dog playing beside her. Completely panicked, the mom called the doctor, who confirmed the tiny human had a mild concussion. Nothing more. Evidently, she had somehow fallen out of the window and survived, and pretty much unharmed. The family moved out that day and never looked back. Yeah, that's a haunted house I don't need to visit. In second place, we have William Peter Blatty, author of The Exorcist. Yep, the book that inspired the famous flick of the same name. In a 1972 interview with British journalist Ray Connolly, he recalled that while finishing his book, The Exorcist, he had a personal experience with a Ouija board that convinced him that he was communicating with some kind of spirit. He claimed that he had never been tempted to explore the board until that date, but once consumed, spent 10 days under its power, positive that he was communicating with the dead. He knew all about how Ouija boards worked because he'd researched it so much for the book. William originally thought it was his father communicating with them, and consulted an expert to help, validate the experience. The expert was a woman who could put herself into a self-imposed hypnotic trance, and who would operate the planchette on the Ouija board. William claims he didn't touch it at all, and asked the questions in Arabic, which the woman didn't understand a word of, and got precisely the right answers. William told Ray that after experimenting with the Ouija board, strange, inexplicable things continued to happen, believing it to be the tricks of a poltergeist. While doing the revisions of the book at a friend's house, the telephone rang, and suddenly the receiver leapt off the hook. It happened to the friend first, and then to William. So he asked a friend who did the acoustics for the Kennedy Center what the possibilities were, electrically, and his friend said it was impossible. He further consulted telephone engineers in 2 states, who also confirmed that was impossible. But both men saw it happen. This was the culmination of several incidents, but it was the main one that in no way could be explained. William remained tight-lipped about most of the other experiences, other than a typewriter that would constantly spit out lines of gibberish instead of the intended writings. Yikes! In first place, we have the Ouija board recovered from the Donovan household. Now, this is a tale from the investigative files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, my favorite paranormal investigators. 15-year-old Patty Donovan came across the Ouija board and, decided to use it to find a friend. From the first yes in response to her queries, Patty was hooked. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it specifics about her everyday life. Now, obviously, she was pretty isolated, but oh well. After a year of telling all of her secrets to the board, Patty had become emotionally dependent on the spirit, asking it one night to reveal her future. During the very long session, it laid out a scenario of Patty's life for the next 6 years, providing specific details, right down to the date of birth of her first child, and the fact that she would have a total of 3 children by 1978, which is all information that would eventually prove to be true. Being as dependent as she was, on the evening of March 2nd, Patty now pleaded for the spirit to manifest. "Please be true, my fake boyfriend." The next morning, her dad, Theodore Donovan, found the spark plug wires pulled out, the rubber hoses unfastened, and the fan belt cut when he attempted to start his car. Now, not much later, Patty attempted to start her car, and it was discovered later that the internal engine had been completely disassembled, somehow overnight, when nobody heard anything. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Foundation shrubs were yanked out of the ground, roots and all. On the roof, a 6-foot cast iron pipe housing, electrical wires was found bent at a 90-degree angle. On Friday, March 8th, Ted marked 1 flat on the kitchen calendar. No sooner did Patty get her car back from the shop stop, then one of her other tires lost air. The next Saturday, her father made the same entry on the calendar, although this time it seemed the tire had been cut with a sharp implement. In the meantime, Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the Ouija board. Night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would simply slide over to goodbye. She had no idea that her lovely boyfriend had actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. Like, come on, Buddy goes completely silent and your house starts being targeted by hell and you don't pick up on it? By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so extreme that Ted complained to the police, who assured him that they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work, Ted and his wife, Ellen, were sitting in the kitchen with their son Brian when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. Carefully moving to investigate, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall in Brian's room. Now, this hole wasn't any ordinary hole. The jagged edges were pointing inwards, with the blow coming from inside the walls. Yeah, the evidence is already a mountain for me, but we still have plenty more to pick through. Listening in the dark that night, Ted heard the sound of a board being pried loose, but after checking the entire house thoroughly, found no loose boards. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to the Warrens. Now, Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Now, they finally contacted Ed and Lorraine, who arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, finding the home in complete disarray. Lorraine originally said nothing, although at the time she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from going back outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was revealed. About time! The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism to be granted, which sadly took a month. The family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time, but that alone could fill a whole top 5, and I don't have that kind of time. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free of the demonic torment, but they were left with over $5,000 in damages to the home, which would be over $30,000 in today's money. Yay!